What's up, everybody? It's me, Code Trucker Looter, for another episode of the Beginning JavaScript episode. And here we have, as promised, I'm going to keep like a very cool as marathon for my JavaScript. Today, I had to do something around during the day, but it's still on Saturday, 26th, and this is going to be hopefully for the upcoming Wednesday. So without further ado, guys, we already covered the first exercise of the chapter four of our how do you call it of our book, whatever. Okay, so let's go with scope and lifetime because we already see the sort of functions, right? So we already know basically how we do with the functions, how actually the functions work, which is very handful, are very handy for our JavaScript code. So without further ado, let's go into scope and lifetime. Okay. So what is meant by scope? Well, to put it simply, it's the scope or extent of a variable's or function's availability, which part of your code can access a variable and the data it contains. Scope is important to any programming language, even more so in JavaScript. So it's imperative that you understand how scope works in JavaScript. Global scope. Any variables or functions declared outside of a function will be available to all JavaScript code on the page. Whether that code is inside a function or otherwise, we call this global scope. Look at the following example. Variable default is equals to 12. Function convert to centigrade. Variable dexcent is equals to 5. Return dexcent. Okay. In this code, the defined variable is a global variable because it is created outside of a function, and because it is global, it can be used anywhere in the page. The convert to centigrade function accesses the defined variable using it as a part of the calculation to convert Fahrenheit to centigrade. This also means you can change the value of a global variable, and the following code does just that. Variable decFahren 12 function convert to centigrade. DecFahren is equal to 20. Okay, this new line of code changes, excuse me, the value of decFahren to 20. So the original value of 12 is no longer used in the calculation. This change in value isn't seen only inside of the convert to centigrade function. The decFahren variable is a global variable and thus its value is 20 everywhere it is used. Additionally, the convert to centigrade function is a global function because it is defined outside of another function. Yes, you can create a function within a function. Funception. Oh my god. Okay. And they too can be accessed anywhere in the page. In practice, you want to avoid creating global variables on functions because they can be easily and unintentionally modified. You can use some tricks to avoid globals, and you will see them throughout this book. But they all boil down to creating variables and functions in functional scope. Functional scope. Coffee time. Variables and functions declared inside a function are visible only inside the function. No code outside the function can access them. For example, consider our standard convert to centigrade function. Function convert. The dexant variable is defined inside the convert to centigrade function. Therefore, it can only be accessed from within convert to centigrade. This is commonly referred to as functional or local scope, and dexant is commonly called a local variable. Okay. Function parameters are similar to variables. They have local scope and thus can only be accessed from within the function. So in the case of the previous convert to centigrade function, decFahren and dexcent are local variables. So what happens when the code inside the function ends and execution returns to the point at which the code was called? The variables defined within the function retain their value when you call the functions the next time? The answer is no. Variables not only have the scope property where they are visible, but they are also have a lifetime. When the function finishes executing, the variables in the function die and their values are lost, unless you return one of them to the calling code. Every so often, JavaScript performs garbage collection, which we talked about in chapter 2. whereby it scans through the code and sees if any variables are no longer in use. If so, the data they hold are freed from memory to make way for the data of other variables. Identifier lookup. What happens if you use the same variable name for both a global and local variable? JavaScript handles this seemingly catastrophic, even with a process called lookup identifier lookup. An identifier is simply the name you give a variable or function. So identifier lookup is the process that the JavaScript engine uses to find a variable or function with a given name. Consider the following code. Variable dexent10, function convert to centigrade. Okay. This code contains two dexent variables. One is global and the other is local to convert to centigrade. When you execute the function, the JavaScript engine creates the local dexent variable and assigns it the result of the Fahrenheit to centigrade conversion. The global dexent variable is left alone and still contains 10, but what value does the return statement return? The global or local dexent? The JavaScript engine begins the identifier lookup process in the current level of scope. Therefore, it starts looking within the functional scope of convert to centigrade. For a variable or function with the name dexent, it finds the local variable and uses its value in the return statement. But if dexent was not created within convert to centigrade, the JavaScript engine would then look in the next level of scope. The global scope in this case for the dexent identifier, it would find the global variable and use its value. So now that you understand how scope works, revisit example 1 in the Fahrenheit to centigrade function. Try it out. Even though it has two dexent variables, one global and one local to convert to centigrade, the code executes without a problem inside the function. The local dexent variable takes precedence over the global. And outside of the function, the local variable is no longer in scope. Therefore, the global dexent is used. Although it's perfectly valid to use the same identifier for global and local variable, it is highly recommended that you avoid doing so. It adds extra and often unnecessary complexity and confusion to your code. It can also make it easier to introduce bugs that are difficult to find and fix. Imagine that within a function, you modified a local variable. When you meant to modify a global variable, that is a bug, and if you replicate it in many other functions, you will spend precious time finding and fixing those errors. Functions as values. JavaScript is a powerful language, and a lot of that power comes from functions. Unlike many other languages, functions are first-class citizens in JavaScript. In other words, we can treat functions just like any other type of value. For example, let's take the convert to centigrade function and assign it to a variable. Function, okay, var my function convert to centigrade. Okay, this code assigns the convert to centigrade function to the my function variable. But look closely at the right-hand side of the assignment. The opening and closing parentheses are missing at the end of the convert to centigrade identifier. It looks a lot like a variable. It is a statement we are not executing convert to centigrade. We are referring to the actual function itself. This means that we now have two ways of executing the same function. We can call it normally by executing convert to centigrade, or we can execute my function like this. Okay. This also means we can pass a function to another function's parameter. Take a look at the following code. Do something later. This code defines a function called do something, and it has a single parameter called fn. Inside the function, the fn variable is used as a function. It's executed by using the fn identifier followed by a pair of parentheses. The final line of code executes the do something function and passes the alert function as the parameter. When this code executes, an alert box displays a message, "Hello world." Passing functions. Okay, it's time to code. Go over here, chapter 4, sample2.html. uh, tag type, HTML, en, uh, head, title, chapter 4, script. Function to centigrade. My goodness. Like foreign. For the accent, well, equals 59 times the foreign minus 32. Document that write the foreign plus Fahrenheit. Wait for me a little bit, guys. Let me do it because this is basically the same thing all over again. Damn it. All right. I was starting, to mess around with the same code all over again. So convert to Fahrenheit 23, convert to centigrade 75. So basically what we do here is that we actually made a new function that convert over here, and basically we pointed that converter function to our temperature function. So now we can use the convert to Fahrenheit and the convert to centigrade pretty easily. So we now save this. We go to our we go to our how you call it, folder, and right here you guys can see, well, that 23 Celsius is 75 Fahrenheit, and 75 Fahrenheit is 23.889 Celsius. Pretty cool, huh? Pretty cool. Okay, now let's go to the other uh, video, the other exercise. Let's try to jump right through it. So we already, you guys can see when you write this, you guys can see that this is pretty much self-explanatory. Are you fucking kidding me? That's all the entire chapter 4? Oh, wow. Okay. Wow. No way. Oh, gosh. Okay. You guys can read all that. Actually, I'm gonna let's read it. Okay. The chapter looked at the following: functions are reusable bits of code. JavaScript has a lot of built-in functions that provide programmer services, such as converting string to a number. However, JavaScript also enables you to define and use your own functions using the function keyword. Functions can have 0 or more parameters passed to them and can return a value if you so wish. Variable scope and lifetime. Variables declared outside of a function are available globally, that is, anywhere in the page, and any variable defined inside a function are private to that function and can't be accessed outside of it. Variables have a lifetime, the length of which depends on where the variable was declared. If it's a global variable, its lifetime is that of the page. While the page is loaded in the browser, the variable remains live. Identifier lookup. When you use a variable or function, the JavaScript engine goes through the identifier lookup process to find the value associated with the identifier. Functions are first-class citizens in JavaScript. You can assign functions to variables and pass them to other functions. Yippee! Okay, that's an exercise. Number one. Number two, and let's jump to JavaScript, an object-based language. We are now in the business of programming. If you know what object-oriented programming is, you are already a horrible programmer. So let's jump in. In this chapter, you look at the concept that is central to JavaScript, namely objects. But what are objects and why are they useful? First, we have to break it to you. You have been using objects throughout this book. JavaScript is an object-based language, and therefore most of what you do involves manipulating objects. You will see that when you make full use of these objects, the range of things you can do with JavaScript expands immensely. We'll start with this chapter by taking a look at the idea of what objects are and why they are important. Okay, we'll move on to what kind of objects are used in JavaScript, how to create them and use them, and how they simplify many programming tasks for you. Finally, you will see in more detail some of the most useful objects that JavaScript provides and how to use these in practical situations. Not only does the JavaScript language consist of a number of these things called objects, which are also called native JavaScript objects, but also the browser itself is modeled as a collection of objects available for your use. You learn about these objects in particular in Chapter 8. Object-based programming. Object-based programming is a slightly scarier way of saying programming using objects. But what are these objects that you will be programming with? Where are they and how and why would you want to program with them? In this section, you look at the answers to these questions, both in general programming terms and more specifically within JavaScript. What are objects? To start the introduction to objects, let's think about what is meant by an object in the real world outside computing. The world is composed of things, or objects, such as tables, chairs, and cars. Let's take a car as an example to explore what an object really is. How would you define a car? You might say it's a blue car with four-wheel drive. You might specify the speed at which it's traveling. When you do this, you are specifying properties of the object. For example, the car has a color property, which in this instance has the value blue. How do you use the car? You turn the ignition key, press the gas pedal, beep the horn, change the gear, that is, choose between 1, 2, 3, 4, and reverse on a manual car, or drive and reverse on an automatic, and so on. When you do this, you are using methods of the object. You can think of methods as being a bit like functions. Sometimes you may need to use some information with the method or pass it a parameter to get it to work. For example, when you use the changing gears method, you need to say which gear you want to change to. Other methods may pass information back to the owner. For example, the dipstick method will tell the owner how much oil is left in the car. Sometimes using one or more of the methods may change one or more of the object's properties. For example, using the accelerator method will probably change the car's speed property. Other properties can be changed. For example, the body shape property of the car. You could say that the car is identified by its collection of methods and properties. In object-based programming, the idea is to model real-world situations by objects, which are defined by their methods and properties. Objects in JavaScript. You should now have a basic idea of what an object is, a thing with methods and properties. But how do you use this concept in JavaScript? In the previous chapters, you have been dealing with the primitive data, and that is you have been working with actual data. This is type of data that is not too complex and is fairly easy to deal with. However, not all information is as simple as primitive data. Let's look at an example to clarify things a little. Suppose you had written a web application that displayed timetable information for buses or trains. Once the user has selected a journey, you might want to let him know how long that journey will take. To do that, you need to subtract the arrival time from the departure time. However, that's not quite as simple as it may appear at first glance. Arrival of if you tell JavaScript to evaluate expression 15.10 for you get the result which is 57 minutes. However, you know that the real difference in time is 17 minutes. Using the normal mathematical operator sometimes doesn't work. Okay, you need to do to get the difference between these things two times and then to get the difference in minutes between the two times we would need to check the weather, the arrival. Okay. The two times were in the same day, it wouldn't work. For example, with the time 23. Okay. To look at the what and the how. Each of the JavaScript objects has a collection of related properties and methods you can use to manipulate and come in. Okay. Okay. Uh, let's jump into the first. Wow. Okay. Oh, thank God. Let's go. Counting occurrences of substrates. Oh gosh, I had to make the new folder. Which now that we are here, we are going to create chapter 5 sample 1.html. Dot type HTML language and head title chapter 5 sample 1 body script var string welcome to rocks bullets dot um the gosh rocks website is come visit the rocks website today. Thanks for buying rocks. Variable found at position equals 0, rocks count, oh gosh, rocks count equals 0, while found at position -1, found at position equals my string dot index of rocks on the position if position not -1 rocks count plus plus found position plus plus. Mm-hmm. Document that write there are rocks count rocks. All right, we go for the chapter 5, go for the page, put in there. There are 4 occurrences of the word rocks. Is this true? Yeah, okay. There are 4 occurrences of the word rocks. On the top of the script block, you build up a string inside the variable myString, which you then want to search for the occurrence of the word rocks. You also define 2 variables. Rocks count will contain the number of times rocks is found in the string, and find the position will contain the position in the string of the current occurrence of the substring rocks. I can barely speak, if you noticed. Okay. Uh-huh. Some kind of part of another variable using expression, you will use the substrings method. Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay. See how you can retrieve the file path and name of the currently loaded web. Action is, you can see that this code uses the return value of the last index of method as a parameter for another method, something that is perfectly correct and very useful. The goal using file name last index of is to find the position of the final forward slash, will be the last character before the name of the file. Okay. Converting case, a lowercase and the uppercase method. Going to change the case of a string, for example, there remove case sensitivity when comparing strings. You need to lowercase the to uppercase methods. Okay. Okay. character from a string, the character anchor, chapter code, add methods. If you want to find out information about a single character within a string, you need to chart art code add again. Enter the last character of my string length argument right. The last character is the last character. The first line you prompt the user for a string with the default of hello world. I store this string in the variable my string. The next line, you use the chart R method to retrieve the last character in the string. You use the index position of my string length. Okay. Instead of the return, so it returns a number that represents the decimal character code for that character in the Unicode character set. Recall that computers only understand numbers, and the computer also refers to numeric data. Excuse me. Okay, checking a character's case. Here. So we are for chapter 5, sample 2.html. Dot type HTML lang en head title we have function check chart type with the scope of char to check. Interesting. Okay. Have the variable inside called return value equals that's O, right? Variable char code char check char code. I believe that's the case, right? Char code add return value char code add set Hmm? Ah, fuck. Wait a minute. There you go. No? Ah, fuck. Wait a minute. Oh, gosh. Let's see. Let's try. Let's write it all over again. I mean, this part at least. Else if char code at 0 and char code at return value. Oh, oh, okay. There you go. Else if char code 0 char code at 0. And then return value. When we wait up, we have more. Return value var my string prompt enter some text. Hello world. Oh my gosh. Case L. Mm-hmm. break case and there we go. That should be it. What the hell is this? What? No. Okay. So now go back to the page. Right. We'll go back to the browser right here. We drag our example number two and we say hello world. Nothing happens. Okay, hold on a minute. H. Nothing is checking for here actually. Let me see what's going on. Let's see what's going on. What's going on? Hold on, hold on. Code. Okay. Uh, Fold. Check HR code. Okay, let's see here. Apparently there's nothing wrong, right? Let's see, word wrap. No. Uh, Let me. All right, guys. I think we have to do the same thing. Where are you guys? Let me go to. All right, guys. I got it. I got it. Right here. It's gonna. Hello world. And the first character was lowercase. There you go. Oh, that first character was uppercase. So that's how you differentiate the lowercase and uppercase. My error was in that in here, You can see that it was throwing me an error in the line number 12 saying that the chart code, it was first of all, it was written like this. Chart, and he told me that chart code was in a function, which was meant to be chart code. Ah, there you go. And then I could input all things and the code could compile. Silly me. Well, guys, that is for today. Thank you very much. There should be another from JavaScript, another course from JavaScript coming for today, but I'm going to leave it up for right now because it's kind of late, even though I'm with coffee. But you get a good 45 minutes today and probably a good 45 minutes later during the day. So thank you very much, guys, for everything and happy coding. Bye bye.